Hey, this is Honey with Cannabivarum. Thanks so much for tuning in today. This is the video podcast of the Cannabivarum show. And I'd like to tell you all who are following me, just so that you can kind of learn how to, if you're interested, jump into podcasting. It's a lot of fun, and it's a great new way to reach your audience and to make a difference in the world and to create an income for yourself. And that's what I'm doing. So I've got a real serious message to give to the world, and I've got really great scientific information to back it up. So I want you all to hear that. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to point you in the direction on my affiliate page on my website for educational services that in places where I found a great education about cannabis, and maybe products and all sorts of things. That'll be coming along soon. Right now we're in the beginning stages of learning how to do all of this podcasting and websiting and TikToking and all of that stuff. We're going to have to pick one or two of those social medias and just figure out how to do all of that too. So we'll be working on that. I'm so glad you're here. I've got a lot to talk about today, and the first thing I want to tell you is my big rookie mistake for podcasting. I've already done this show. This is the second time I'm reproducing the show. The second time I'm reproducing the show. Nothing like being redundantly repetitive. I made a real silly mistake, which is what I want to tell you. See this little gizmo here? Somehow one of these little slippy things on either side of this got flipped the wrong direction, and I did this whole show yesterday on mute. So you might want to make up a checklist for yourself before you start videotaping of all the things that you have to remember to check, and then you won't be wasting your time. Really, podcasting does take the most time in podcasting takes you into the post-production, where you're doing all the editing and losing your mind over imperfections and flaws. But it's so much fun, and you can do this. So, hey, I'm 66 and creating a brand new career for myself out of nothing. So went and got some education, really good education, have a real message to tell you all in this burgeoning industry. And you can jump into this industry in your own field of specialty too. I'm not a doctor, but I am a cannabis shaman, and I do know more than most medical doctors in the U.S. about cannabis right now. So I'm just trying to help you understand what I do so that you can make good decisions for yourself about cannabis in this brand new industry. Here we go. There are so many ways we can help our society. Just one person really can make a lot of change happen, and a group of people can affect an amazing tomorrow. My spouse is 88. And COVID-19 prevented us from standing in line to vote in person. It's too risky for us. So we did all the work at home and jumped in the car and drove to the polls and dropped our ballot off in the official ballot box. That was the first day of early voting in Florida a few days ago. And then I waved at all the people standing in line to vote and thanked them for being there. Jumped back in the car and put our I voted stickers on. Took a picture for posterity because, I don't know, we just do that every time we get to vote. It suddenly felt like, I don't know, a new world may be blossoming. And then I found out that as of that day, over 40 million people had voted already. That was a few days ago. Now it's over 42 million people as of today. That's 11% of the population, and that in itself is pretty amazing. Change is coming, friends. Change is coming. So let's talk about our old attitudes that we need to update for the current science we're listening to so that we can make better decisions for ourselves. I'm mostly talking about the difference between adult use marijuana and medical marijuana. already confusing terms that don't really describe their meaning. For street weed, you just go out and buy it. You don't have to cough up extra money to become a medical marijuana patient. Like you do to become a medical marijuana patient. You don't have to divulge any of your ailments as an excuse to use. You don't have to, go find a pot doctor. You don't have to spend extra money on a state card. So people who just want to smoke pot, recreationally, of course, they're not looking for a medical fix. They're looking for an attitude adjustment. So let's give them one. There's lots of attitudes, both in this industry and outside of it. The attitude of the patient who needs relief, the doctor outside of the industry who doesn't believe the hype, the doctor who just stepped into the industry to make some cash to pay off school debt, but doesn't yet know much about the plant because he wasn't formally educated about it, and laws don't force him to educate yet. The formal educational institutions who cannot teach about the plant because of its dastardly Schedule I ranking. The business trying to dispense medical marijuana under extremely crippling regulations. The town and city councils who allow cannabis businesses but mandate cripplingly tough restrictions on locations and advertising. The government attitude about cannabis businesses and lack of banking access because of Schedule I ranking, and yet your government has owned over a dozen patents on cannabis since 1938. Google it. And then there's the public school attitude that cannabis is bad, the uninformed, ignorant attitude that there's just an element of people who will never amount to anything, who just want to get high and check out a life. There's police attitudes that prioritize black and brown marijuana arrests from their own personal biases. Court and social systems set up with a priority to punish black and brown for using, still happening today, when others are using without impunity, who are just white. Or they live in states that are already flipped for cannabis, while other cannabis people of cannabis are sitting in prisons. Makes me want to scream and pull my hair out and poke my eyes with something sharp all at the same time. It's just amazingly stupid. This is hard to say, but in 2020 there grew terrible confusion about science in general, about factual information. So let me just explain it to you, Lucy. Factual information has standards of scientific testing and evaluation to prove the point. A fact is a fact. There's no such thing as an untrue fact or an alternative fact. Sorry. So every time I hear my friends and family all over the U.S. talking about getting their cannabis from a friend or a cousin or the neighbor's kid who grows weed in his backyard, I'm fearful. I'm very fearful for them because I know a lot of cannabis facts. And in my humble opinion, after 66 years of watching people, there's hardly a soul on the planet who is what the commercials would call healthy. No need of pills and prescriptions to correct adverse health issues. And now that we know most adverse health issues start with inflammation in the gut, it's easy to assume that we are what we eat. And since self-modulation with food seems to be a problem, it's also easy to see that correcting or just relieving the symptoms of those problems that we grow inside our bodies will take a lifetime of attention. So, at what age did you begin taking synthetic prescription drugs for your issues? Doesn't matter what age was. You've got issues. The better question to ask yourself is, how effective are those meds and what side effects are you dealing with? Because side effects of prescription drugs are what's driving most patients to medical marijuana. They either can't handle the misery anymore from side effects of drugs they've been taking for too long, or the meds have stopped working altogether because they've reached their tolerance. Most people tolerate a lot of weird issues they can't quite articulate till a problem has begun to interfere with the production of their day. Whether that's an upset tummy, dizziness, a new ache that wasn't there before, sleeplessness, brain fog, depression, nervousness, or a multitude of other symptoms. When it finally clicks in that these may be side effects you're suffering from your blood pressure meds, or your IBS meds, or your antidepressant meds, or whatever you're taking, but not the ailment itself, you're about to realize the prescription pill business will always generate adverse side effects for humans and animals because they're only targeting one thing with one synthetic compound, not perfect for our bodies. That's not what happens with cannabis. Cannabis, whether it's hemp or marijuana, has over 400 compounds in it that our bodies have natural receptors for. It is responsible for managing all kinds of performance systems in our bodies, including appetite, memory, food, pain, physical movement, and here's the good news. It is a benevolent plant for humans and animals. We know this to be true because of its planetary history. Since the dawn of the written word, never a death attributed to cannabis. The very first pharmacopoeia, written in 2700 BCE by a Chinese emperor who was an herbalist, and his name was Shen Nung, an armchair herbalist. And he wanted all of that information that he had gleaned and all other people had gleaned about the plants that they had been reviewing and testing. He wanted all of that written down for posterity. So the first pharmacopoeia, the book of herbs and medicines and plants, was written. And their word for cannabis was Ma, M-A. And their pictograph for it looked like two hanging marijuana plants drying as they're curing from a rafter. It's a very cool, pretty little pictograph, and I'll throw it up on my web for you to see, or you can Google it, the Chinese word for cannabis, Ma. Anyway, the plant's effects were left to the people of science to determine, those herbalists who were interested in what the plants could do for people, the caregivers. So all of that somehow got deviously turned around in the 19th century by greed and bigotry. Oil and plastics, cotton and war contracts, it all made a good excuse to squeeze out the little cannabis competition left by creating negative propaganda and jailing the unwanted colors in society for using it. Then a whole new unjust world of hate began to thrive, and we've been dealing with that for quite some time. But we can fix it. How? By shining a light on the truth, as usual, and also about the truth about cannabis, by showing what the scientific tests are proving and accepting factual information, by regulating companies to practice best standards of operating procedures, and by allowing all of the typical business startups the same advantage to banking and advertising allowed for other medicinal products on the market. Crippling the cannabis industry out of fear, ignorance, or greed is simply unacceptable in 2020. We can do better with the brains and information we have. So the next time you're saying to yourself, I just need to smoke a joint, but you don't think you're a cannabis patient, ask yourself the real why behind that puff you're wanting. Did somebody in some situation just frustrate the hell out of you, cannabis can settle that frayed nerved feeling pretty fast. Did you just lose your mind in traffic and now all you can think about is getting home to light up? Yeah, that's your body telling you that cannabis can help your daily stress. Are you exhausted from all the pressure of your day and just can't put a smile on your face? Yep, there's a kind of cannabis that can give you some energy and your peace, allowing you to forget the stress for a while and enjoy the moment. Worried about all that worry keeping you up at night when you're already so tired from work and family responsibilities and pressure that sleeping has become an issue? Cannabis can help you sleep all night and wake up refreshed. Have some PTSD from life experiences you just can't seem to get over? Cannabis has a secret weapon for that. It alleviates these negative memories for a while to let you have an emotional rest. It stops the bad memory looping in your head. God, my loops still run from horrible childhood issues. One puff from my bedside vape pen, and I just roll over and go back to sleep. Just want to tolerate your kids and be loving and patient with the spouse? Yeah, that's what cannabis is really great at too. Soothing those frayed nerves. Need to buckle down and get that article written or documents straightened out or bills paid, but just can't make yourself go do it? Cannabis has a secret weapon for that too. You just have to know which cannabis to choose for your needs. And then you'll have several choices in how to use it, how to deliver the cannabis into your body. You can smoke the raw flower, you can use vape pens and concentrates to vape, you can use drops of tincture in the side of your mouth, you can use edibles, stuff that you just swallow and eat and swallow, powders to mix into drinks, nose sprays, transdermal patches, and more. But here's the real deal that worries me about all my friends and family out there using their friends' homegrown weed. Unless they're having every batch third-party lab tested. Let me say it again. Unless they're getting every batch third-party lab tested, you can just consider that batch contaminated because you don't know. And if it is, and it probably is, then you are not doing yourself a favor. You're sucking in a lot of poison to your body. Let me say that again. Unless you're having every batch third-party lab tested for contamination, you're sucking in a lot of poison to your body. Guaranteed. Cannabis sucks up heavy metals out of the soil, stuff that's been there forever and leaches up from the earth's core. Heavy metals cause brain damage. Pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, molds, mildews, and batshit. It's all there to be discovered under a microscope, and it's what they list on the autopsies of cancer patients with weakened immune systems when they die from the aspergillus mold in their lungs. It wasn't the cannabis they were smoking to alleviate the painful issues. It was the mold. I don't know about you, but at 66, my doctors have prescribed every kind of old lady pill I hear everybody else is on and complaining about. The brain fog alone caused so many issues, I may never live it down with my spouse or friends. What I do know is that compounding synthetic prescriptions never got my body fixed. My blood pressure may have gone down, but the ache produced in my shoulder and elbows was too painful to ignore. Take a pain pill, my doctor said, on top of all that stuff. Or let's change the prescription and see if a new one will work. Pills are singular synthetic chemical compounds. Singular synthetic compounds made in a lab to produce in bulk. They target one thing in your body. They're only meant to target one thing in your body. And they produce lots of side effects. Nausea, diarrhea, headaches, muscle aches, dizziness, nervousness, sleeplessness. But they hit their target. Your BP is low. Cannabis, with over 400 chemical compounds that grow naturally in it, can alleviate a multitude of issues because those compounds are working synergistically with each other in your body, and your body is already growing receptors that cannabis and all of its compounds will bind to. So cannabis is great therapy for every one of those side effects from that single compound that's synthetic. You can claim that you just want to have adult use marijuana available in your neck of the woods just because you want pot when you want pot. But there truly is an underlying reason that your body is telling you in body language why you should be using cannabis. Seriously. So, if you're compounding those singular prescription drugs with contaminated weed, you are not doing yourself a favor. In fact, you're doing yourself a real disservice. So, let's say you can't afford the cost of a new pot doctor and the state card that you have to buy too. In Florida, it's $75, and the pot doctor anywhere from, I don't know, 100 to 250 up. Depends on who you find. And rarely, well, that's for another show. Anyway, so what are you going to do? You can only afford street weed and you're already sick? I've got some ideas about that. You can buy, the safest way to buy clean product that won't harm you is to ask for the third-party lab results that prove no contamination. Stick with me here. Doesn't matter what company you're talking to. You know, street dealer, brick and mortar, dispensary, CBD shop, whatever. You hold the product up and say, third-party lab test on this? And if they look at you like you just spoke Greek to them, say thank you and turn around, walk out. Go to a different place. Because you are able to find lab-tested products that prove they are clean in Florida. And again, if you cannot afford to become a registered medical marijuana patient and you're still buying street weed, tell your dealer to start coughing up a certificate of analysis for you and see what he says. Demand creates supply. So still, you got to buy street weed because you need that THC for that extra kick in your regime. We'll talk about that in a minute. So if the product that you're holding does not have a lab test attached to it that proves that it is not contaminated, just go find a different product that does have a third-party lab test that says it's clean. Whether that's a hemp product that you're buying over the counter or whether that's street weed or whether it's medical marijuana that's legal, and all legal medical marijuana has to be third-party lab tested according to law. So, next, here's how to save a little money, especially if you cannot become medical marijuana patient quite yet. Save up your money and do that, though. It's truly the only way to protect yourself. So in order to save a little money for yourself, if you're still having to do street weed, go find yourself a really good hemp store or hemp product online and start using hemp. It will help you sleep. It will help the inflammation in your body, which is what most issues are caused from. It will help anxiety. It will help PTSD. It will help all of that inflammation. So go find yourself a good CBD product and start using that. Now, don't use it the same way you would your street weed. And let me talk to you about the way you're using your street weed. If you're smoking your brains out, stop it. You don't need to do that for pot to be effective for you. In fact, the intelligent way to do it is to micro dose. Because first, you're not burning up all your weed, which you're burning half of anyway if you're smoking it in a joint, and then not putting it out. If you're still smoking joints, take a hit, put it out, put it down, wait for the response. See if it was effective with just one toke. Take note of how long that toke was when you were inhaling. Was it 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds? It'll make a difference. And then just jot that down so you'll know. Just keep a little journal for a day or so. And that way, you're going to find out what your sweet spot is for dosing your issues by realizing how many tokes it takes for you to feel the cannabis working. So, 1, microdose to save money, to keep from building your tolerance for cannabis. And let's see, to save money, to keep from building tolerance, to microdose, and start using hemp throughout the day to relieve yourself, and microdose with hemp as well, and then save your medical marijuana or even your street weed, if you must, for pain. And see if you don't start saving a whole lot of money by using a good hemp product. What's good? Remember, it's safe because it's third-party lab tested to prove there are no contaminants in it. No herbicides, fungicides, pesticides, no molds, no mildews, no heavy metals, no batshit, right? Okay, so prove that your weed, whether it's medical marijuana, whether it's hemp, whether it's, whatever you can get, prove that it's safe for you so you don't do any damage. And then microdose. So those are really great ways to save money on your product. And then, a good product. How can you tell what a good product is? Look at the company. I don't get any money from Charlotte's Web, but I love Charlotte's Web if you're looking online. They were the first, there's like 6 Stanley brothers that own the company, and they were the first ones to figure out that, at least for the majority of the public, that their hemp products would stop seizures in these terrible, terrible epileptic diseases that these kids were having. And there was this huge medical marijuana migration of mothers to save their children into Colorado, and that's what started Charlotte's Web. Charlotte Fiji was able to manage her terrible illness. And that's a whole nother story, but you should look it up online. Anyway, Charlotte's Web is a beautiful product. It's always clean. You can always trust it. And for here in Melbourne, in Florida, there's American Shaman, both in Melbourne, off of Wickham, at Lake Washington and Wickham, and there's one in Satellite Beach, near the Publix, at near the Pineda Causeway, and there's also one up in Century now. So those products at American Shaman you can trust. They third-party lab test their products, and so you can go to a brick and mortar and find great products, or you can order online. Neither one of those companies even know that I'm mentioning their names. So and I want you to know that, because I've used their products. I trust their products are clean, and I want you to be able to have the same relief that I can find by using the methods that I'm teaching you. So let's see, where was I? I guess that's about all I can tell you for this video podcast. I'm really grateful that you're here. I love helping you. And I want to answer all of your questions, so be sure and write to me. You can also pick up the phone and call me. Go to my website to find out more information. And gosh, go to my website and be a hero in your own neck of the woods. I'll just leave that to you, that little juicy tidbit. Go find out how you can be a hero in your neck of the woods, and I'm talking today. Your neighbors will love this idea, and it's real easy, and it's always free. So go to my website at cannabivarum.com, and you'll find out how to be a hero today. That's CANNABAVERUM.com. I'm so glad you came to share a little cannabis truth with me. See you next time.